Okay, and what I want to do in this video is go through Unit 3.2 exchange rates, and these are the mathematical questions, well mostly mathematical questions that come up on the paper 3. So the first question is, in the country of Guardia, the currency is the gamma. The exchange rate of the United States dollar to the gamma is $1 equals 6.2 gamma. Okay, so if a visitor to Guardia from the US buys a towel that costs 23 gamma, calculate the cost in USD. Right, well the first thing is, and there are two ways to look at this, but they're the exact same way, right? So one thing is, because we're trying to convert from gammas to dollars, and we know $1 equals 6.2, the simple thing that we can do then is just go 23, because 23 gammas, divided by 6.2, and that equals 3.71 USD. Okay, now another way that you can look at this is that if you want to find out the amount of dollars per gamma, what you could do is divide both sides by 6.2. Okay, so if $1 equals 6.2 gammas, 1 gamma equals 1 over 6.2. Okay, that's the only thing I just kind of want to bring to your attention now. All right, now, more foreign tourists are visiting Guardia. Outline the effect on the value of the gamma. You must give a reason for your answer. So the gamma will appreciate or rise in value as a result of the increase in demand for the gamma in the forex market. If more people are going to Guardia, well then what's happening is they have to buy the currency in order to buy the goods and services that are there. So that is an increase in the demand, ceteris paribus, assuming other things are kept equal, and that increase in demand will cause the value of the currency to rise. Now just making sure that we're staying focused, and we are. Okay, so Guardia received a loan of USD 4 million from a foreign bank in 2018 when the exchange rate was $1 equals 5.3 gamma. It must pay back 4.2 million, which is the original plus the interest. So the loan is denominated in USD. Okay, so it's 4.2 million in 2019 when the exchange rate, has worsened for the gamma, because 5.3 gamma used to buy $1 and now it takes 6.2 gamma to buy $1. Okay, so what we've got to do here is we first of all have to go, in 2018 it was 4 million multiplied by 5.3, and it's 4 million because they borrowed 4 million, and it's 5.3 because that was the exchange rate at the time. Now just looking at my notes, I have 21,200,000, I believe, is the answer to that. Okay, now in 2019 they had to pay back 4.2, but don't forget, 4.2 million US dollars, but don't forget it takes 6.2 gamma to buy $1 now. So in order to buy 4.2 million of them, it's going to take 26 million and what's that, 40,000. Okay, so to find the additional cost, right, you have to take this number here away from this number here. So that's the first thing I'm going to write down. 26 million and 43 minus 21,200,000. Okay, and the answer here equals 4,840,000 what? Gamma. Okay, keep that in mind. And always write down your units. Okay, now the next thing here, both the gamma and the United States are fully convertible currencies. That means they're just traded on a freely floating stock exchange. It's not a stock exchange, a currency exchange. The supply and demand for USD in billions are given by the function. So the quantity supplied of USD is -2 plus the price, the value, the exchange rate of gamma, and the quantity demanded is 10 minus 2 times the value, the price, the exchange rate of gamma. Okay, so, and it's expressed in terms of USD. Okay, where G is the exchange rate of the USD in terms of gamma. QS is the quantity supplied of USD per month, and QD is the quantity demanded per month. So it says calculate the equilibrium exchange rate. Well, these kind of questions are actually, even though they may look tricky, they actually are really easy. So in equilibrium, like everything in economics, quantity supplied equals quantity demanded. So what I'm going to write down first here is I'm going to write the quantity supplied, which is -2 plus G equals 10 minus 2G. I'm going to bring this -2 over here, and I'm going to bring this minus 2G from the right to the left, and this -2 here from the left to the right. So I've got this G here plus 2g, and it's a plus now because I'm bringing it over the equal sign, so it changes sign, equals 10. This was a minus 2. I'm going to bring this over, it becomes a plus 2. So we get 3g equals 12. Now what do I do? Well, if 3g's are 12, well then g is 1/3 of this value, so I have to divide both sides by the number for the letter I'm trying to find, and we get g equals 4. So the answer here, and this is very important, is 1 USD equals 4 gamma. Okay, and please do keep that in mind. 1 USD equals 4 gamma. Okay, now have I done that? I have. Right, now, just changing up the stuff here. Okay, so let's make sure you can see this. All right, so the demand function here, the demand function is represented in figure 2. Okay, that's the demand for gamma. Assume that the monthly supply of USD changes to the function of QS, it's minus a half plus G. All right, well, plot and label the new supply curve. So what we've got to do here is we've got to find 2 points that are on this line, put our ruler down and join them. Now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my camera so that you can see it. Okay, excellent. So what we've got here is we're going to write down QS equals minus 0.5 plus G. And what I'm going to do now is just to set G equal to 10. I can choose any point as long as it's on, see the way 10 here is given to us, right? So the idea is that it's within the realm that this graph is drawn, okay? I couldn't put in 20 because that would be off the page, right? So now, so we go QS equals minus 0.5 plus, instead of G, I'm going to write down 10. Okay, so I've got QS, quantity supplied, equals minus 0.5 plus 10. QS equals 9.5. Okay, now there's one. Right, now I need another point. So what I've got here is at G is 10, the quantity supplied is 9.5. I'm going to mark that on it in a second, but I'm going to continue on with this question here, just working out my second point. Now QS, write in the quantity supplied, minus 0.5 plus G, okay, just taking that directly from there, and I'm going to set QS equal to 0, and that's never a bad one when you're dealing with supply. So I'm going to write down 0 equals minus 0.5 plus G, and I bring the minus 0.5 and I get plus 0.5 equals G. So at a quantity of 0, which is, I'll just show you here, which is here, what we have is our answer, G equals 0.5. Okay, G here is 0.5. So that's the first one I'm going to do. So at a quantity of 0, I'm going to put in G equals 0.5. Well, here's 2. Halfway there is 1, because this is 0. So here's 1 point. Okay, I got 1 point there. Never do it in pen, always do it in pencil. Do what I say, not what I do, I suppose. Okay, and then the next one is, we've got when G is 10, or the value, or the exchange rate is 10 gammas to the dollar, okay, we have the quantity supplied is 9.5. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go up to 10, and here's 9, so it's here. Okay, so now I will take my own advice. I'm going to get out my trusty ruler, and I'm going to take a pencil, and I'm just going to join these 2 dots. Okay, and do this nice and slow, and hopefully we've got a good one there, and we seem to. Okay, so we've just got S. There we go, S, G, whatever, it's not that important. Okay, now you can see that. Right, excellent. Now the next question then is, I could have worked it out there, but I didn't want to because I wanted you to see it while I was working it out. Okay, using figure 2, calculate how many USD are needed to buy 1 gamma in the exchange rate. Right, now, see, this is very important, and they'll always try and catch it out in many ways. What this is the demand for USD and the supply of USD. So the very first thing that I'm going to do now is I'm going to get back out my trusty ruler. I'm going to do it in pen just so you can see. Always do this stuff in pencil. Okay, so what we're saying is 3.5, okay, it's 3 here, okay, but the answer, the value here is 3.5, because that's 2.5, 3, and then we're up at 3.5, right? So let me just draw this across. Now, what we're saying is, it's not $3.5 to the gamma, okay, what we are actually saying is, it's 3.5 gammas to the dollar. All right, so then what's happening is, and this is a good way to do this, right? So you calculate how many USD are needed to buy 1 gamma, okay? Now, we've got $3.5, or 3.5 gamma to $1. We're saying how many dollars just to buy 1 gamma, okay? So $1 would buy 3.5. We're saying how many to buy 1. So what we need to do is we need to get the number before the G 1. And the way we can do that, okay, is 3.5G over 3.5, and that equals, I'm just rewriting this, 1 USD, I suppose that should have been there, but anyway, over 3.5, okay, this cancels this cancel. What that means is 1 gamma equals, and I have done this before, which is, I'm going to put in dollars and write 0.29 or 29 cent, okay, so write 1 gamma, okay, equals 29 cent US. Okay, so just keep that in mind, okay, that when we're trying to find the exchange rate, just work out what you want. If it's like, so that means that is USD per gamma, okay, that's what that is, all right. How many US dollars do you get for 1 gamma, all right. Now, next one, state 2 reasons that could have caused an increase in the supply of USD. Okay, well, we already said it had, so let's have a look. Now, US consumers increasing their imports, Guardia's interest rates rising, Guardia's inflation rate falling relative to the US, speculative selling of US dollars because of expectations of depreciation, and US incomes rising at a faster rate than Guardia, so we're buying more from them because our taste for imports tend to rise as a nation as our incomes rise, and that is true. Now, I suppose I shouldn't have really put this one in here. It should have been in the multiplier, but now that it's in, I'll go through it anyway. So Guardia's investment in plant and equipment increased by 11 million gamma in the last month. In the same month, its government spending decreased by 8 million gamma. So what was the net injection is the question there, right? So what we're saying is, well, I won't go into that. It has been estimated that the marginal propensity to consume, the fraction of any extra income which is spent on consumption, on domestic goods and services in Guardia is 0.75. Calculate the maximum possible increase in real gross domestic product in Guardia. So if some of an increase in aggregate demand, okay, causes inflation, that is not going to increase real GDP, okay? So what we would want is a perfectly elastic aggregate supply curve, so any increase in aggregate demand only ever causes an increase in real GDP with no increase in the price level, which is inflation. But we're saying that, well, that's not true. It doesn't happen that way. But what we're saying is that assuming that did happen, what's the biggest change in real GDP possible from this? Well, the first thing I'm going to actually do is work out the multiplier, okay? But I want you to realize that this multiplier multiplied by the injection or leakage, the net injection in this case, equals the change in GDP. Now, see the way I didn't say real GDP per se, okay? Because some of this could cause inflation, and most likely it will. But assuming that we've got no inflation, all right, then we're going to say it's all going to cause a change. The increase in aggregate demand is only going to cause a change in real GDP. So the multiplier is 1 over 1 minus the MPC. That is 1 over 1 minus 0.75, which equals 1 over 0.25, and 1 divided by a quarter is 4. Okay? Now the next thing is we've got the change in injection, the net injection, I suppose I could have written down. Well, investment went up by 11 million and government spending went down by 8. So that's 3 million what though? It's 3 million gamma. Okay, keep that in mind, guys. All right. Now what we've got is we've got the multiplier, which is 4, multiplied by the net injection in this case. It's not a leakage, it's an injection, which is 3 million, okay, equals 12, I'll just write 12 million, and I'll write it out here, gamma. Okay, 12 million gamma. Check out the other video on the Keynesian multiplier if that confuses you. All right. Now, let's see. God, I hope that was on the screen. I didn't really check if it was, but I think it was. Okay. So Tanya is a currency speculator. She buys and sells currencies with the intention of making gains as a result of changes in the exchange values of currencies. Currently, she is holding US 300,000 USD, but she expects that in the next few months, the euro, the currency of the Eurozone, will appreciate against the US dollar. Right, so at present, right, the euro is 120. Now, explain, and I've got my sheets over here, okay, explain 2 possible economic consequences for the Eurozone if the euro appreciates. Okay, well, the first thing is the current account balance. If the euro gets stronger, stronger currency may reduce export competitiveness of the Eurozone, which could lead to increasing imports and reducing exports, say them both, thus worsening the current account balance, and that is absolutely 100% true. Keep that in mind. You can't really talk about exchange rates and not talk about the balance of payments. Reduced inflationary pressure. A currency appreciation will reduce the domestic price of imports, so cost of living will decrease, and that is true. The cost of imported raw materials will decrease, thus lowering the production cost of domestic firms. That is true. These two factors combine to reduce inflationary pressure, and that also is true. Now, the next one is reduced aggregate demand. Well, why? A stronger currency may reduce export competitiveness of the Eurozone. We've just said that it would, causing aggregate demand to decrease because net exports is part of aggregate demand, thus reducing inflationary pressure. And now, God, I hope this... Okay, we can all see that. Unemployment. A stronger currency may reduce export competitiveness of the Eurozone, causing aggregate demand to decrease, thus causing higher unemployment or at least slowing employment growth. Okay, that is also true. Reduce foreign debt. Well, why? Because we have seen from the previous case when Gamma was paying back its 4 million USD that a stronger currency means it will buy more of foreign goods, of a foreign currency, and therefore you'll be able to pay back debts denominated in foreign currency quicker. Okay, so the value of any foreign debt may be reduced as a smaller amount of euro will be needed to repay the debt or service the interest payments on the debt. This only applies if the debt is denominated in foreign currency. Don't forget that. Decreased foreign direct investment, and that's also true, okay? So foreign direct investment inflows may decrease as it becomes more expensive to purchase assets in the Eurozone, okay? Not all good or bad in and of themselves, but we just have to be aware of all of these things and be able to intelligently comment on them. Okay, now, let me just fix this up here. Okay, so we know that €1 buys $1.20, okay? Calculate the quantity of euros she will receive for 300,000 USD. This one, this one is straightforward. It's just 300,000, okay, divided by 1.2, and what you actually get is that's in euros 250,000, okay? Now, have I done that? Yes, I have. I've done this one. Okay, so now we're on to 2C. Now, this is very interesting because currency speculation is essentially a bit of a gamble. It's an educated guess, but it's a guess nonetheless. The EU depreciates by 10%. The euro, I don't know why they're writing the EU euro, anyway, depreciates by 10% against the USD. Fearing further depreciation of the euro, Tanya exchanges her euros for dollars. Now, this is very important, and you have to ask why. Excuse me. The euro has depreciated, therefore, by 10%. Therefore, €1 now buys 90% of the dollars than it did before the depreciation. So what you now get is that €1 equals $1.2 multiplied by 0.9, because that'll give you 90% of it. Now, I believe that is, in terms of dollars, that is 1.08. Calculate the USD, the loss made by Tanya as a result of these transactions. Well, the very first thing then we've got to do is we've got to go 250,000 euro, right, multiplied by 1.08 equals 270,000. 1, 2, 3. That's how many dollars it is. But calculate the loss made by Tanya. Well, she had $300,000, okay, and we're taking away now 270, and the answer therefore equals $30,000. Okay, that's the answer there. Now, up to the next one. Explain 2 reasons why a government may prefer a floating exchange rate system. Right. Well, one of them, and I think it's, well, I think there's a few things. I think that, there's many reasons why. But anyway, okay, so an independent monetary policy. What we mean by that is you can just use monetary policy to solve any aggregate demand problems at home, or try to address at least any aggregate demand problems at home. You don't have to use monetary policy to maintain or fix an exchange rate, to manage or fix an exchange rate. Now, a floating exchange rate system allows for independent monetary policy, right? Interest rates can be set in order to influence aggregate demand at home without fear of disrupting the fixed exchange rate, because you can't do that, mess around with monetary policy in order to try and address aggregate demand problems at home and while maintaining a fixed exchange rate or a managed exchange rate, because you may have divergent desires. Something you would want to have a contractionary monetary policy at home, and you may want to have an expansionary monetary policy in the forex market, and you can't obviously do both at the same time because they're diametrically opposed. Self-regulating current account. If an economy has a current account deficit, right, if it's deficit, the currency will get weaker, and then we'll stop importing and they'll buy loads of our exports, so it'll solve itself, all right? Or surplus. The exchange rate will act as a self-regulating mechanism to restore the balance. Okay, I would need you to understand each of these things now, okay? Reduced need for foreign reserves. Yeah, the central bank does not need to maintain foreign reserves, which involves an opportunity cost to be able to intervene in the forex market, and that's 100% true. Now, macroeconomic variables, okay. The government, Okay, so the government or central bank can use exchange rate policy to affect macroeconomic variables such as growth rate, inflation, all of that kind of stuff. Okay, so they don't need to worry too much about what the new exchange rate will be if they're messing around with a number of different things, I suppose. But the main one for me is probably monetary policy. Now, state one way in which the government of Alpha might bring about a depreciation of its currency. Okay, so the first one is, and I understand that essentially these are the two of the same things, and I'm going to go into a little bit of depth as why they are different, or why we consider them different. The first one is sell the currency in the forex market. So what happens is the central bank prints money, the mint prints money. The central bank or the government goes to the forex market and just puts it straight on the forex market. Okay, the idea, at least straight away, that money has not come back into the domestic economy, and as such has not affected the money supply of the domestic economy yet, and as such will not affect interest rates. Okay, so they print money, they don't go anywhere near the domestic economy, and they put it straight in the forex market. That's an outward shift of the supply. The next one is reduce interest rates. Now, I understand that yes, this is also printing money, but this is printing money and then keeping it in the domestic economy. Now, when you do that, that will cause interest rates to fall, okay, increasing the domestic money supply. And when that happens, the demand for our domestic currency falls, okay, because they get less returns, investors get less returns relative to what they would have gotten beforehand, and as such, they will sell our currency. Well, let's say, I don't want to confuse you, but they will not buy as much as they were buying of our currency. Okay, and add to its reserves of foreign currency. And well, how do you do that? Well, you have to sell your own currency anyway. So, I mean, I would just keep in mind, there's three, I just definitely the first two, and please understand the difference, okay? It's subtle, but there is one. All right, now, the demand and supply functions for the currency of country A, the dollar, are given by QD equals that, QS equals that, where QD is the quantity of dollars demanded per month, QS the quantity of dollars supplied per month, and P is the price of the dollar measured in yen. Now, very good. Okay. 4A, outline the reason why a fall in the price of the dollar should lead to an increase in the quantity demanded of dollars. And it's just simple. More exports will be sold at a lower exchange rate, and as such, more dollars would be demanded in order to purchase these exports. No problem. Okay, I hope so. It's just a drop. It's a movement along the demand curve. Now, this one here. Okay, so assume that the dollar to yen exchange rate is in equilibrium using the functions above, which we've already mentioned, and you can just see there, okay, at the very, very top. Calculate the cost in dollars of a motorbike, which costs 552,640 yen. So do not forget, guys, quantity supplied equals quantity demanded, right? So the first thing I'm going to write down here is 580 plus 12p, that's the supply curve taken from up here, okay, equals 1,900 minus 18p. All right, and the reason that I always put supply first, I say quantity demanded equals quantity supply, but I write down quantity supply as quantity demanded, is because if you do this, usually you'll have the variable on the left be a positive. So I've got the 12p here. I'm going to bring this minus 18p over. That becomes plus 18p. And that equals 1,900 minus 580. I'm bringing this 580 and I'm putting it over here, so I have to change its sign. Now, so what we now have is 30p, okay, 12 plus 18 equals, and this is 1320, okay, 1900 minus 580. And then we divide both sides by 30. Okay, cancel, and I bring this straight across here, and I write p equals 44. And what is this currency? Yeah, okay, yeah, sorry. That's right, yep, lovely. Now, the next thing is, we were also told to calculate the value of this 552,640 yen. So what we're going to do here now is just write down yen 552,640 divided by what? Well, it's going to be divided by 44. Okay, and what that equals in USD is 12,560. So that's how much that motorbike costs. Okay, very good. Now, 4B, we're on to this one here. Let's make sure you can see again, guys. I'll actually move up my camera. Okay, right, now, very good. Okay, so the currency of Botswana is the Botswana Pula, BWP. The annual demand for BWP is given by the function that here, okay, and the annual supply is given by that, where P is the United States dollar price of BWP. So it's dollars per BWP, right? QD is the annual quantity demanded, and QS is the annual quantity supplied in millions of units of the BWP. The value of the BWP is determined, my God, on free floating exchange rates. Yeah, fine, right, fine. Define the term free floating exchange rate. Now, the determination of the exchange rate depends on market forces. A lot of people are not saying that demand and supply of a currency on a free floating market, okay? That is the demand for a currency and the supply of a currency. Please keep that in mind, guys. It's quite important. Okay, so we're going to write down again, and says, calculate the equilibrium exchange WP. Now, so can you see that? Just pull that down a little bit, and we've got the things here. All right, so what we're saying here is 4578 plus 200p equals 4611 minus 100p. Okay, I just want to make sure I haven't done anything stupid, and I don't believe I have. 200p plus 100p brought this over, changed its sign, equals 4611 minus 4578. Okay, so that's 300p equals, let me check my notes here, supposedly that is 33. I'm sure I might as well do it now that I'm here. Up here, just so you can see. Okay, so what we have is 4611 minus 4578. Yeah, 33, lovely, right? And then what we're going to do is we're going to divide this by 300, okay? And what I get here is P, and I think you can see that, and you can, equals 0.11. What does this mean? What this actually means is that as the answer, 1 BWP equals 0.11 USD. Okay, now the question here is, right, so it's found that it's 0.11 USD. Now, following a rise in domestic interest rates in Botswana, the value of the BWP rises to 0.14, 14 cent, right? State the term, and it's a free floating exchange rate. And how do we know that? Because we're flipping well told it up here, okay? State the term used to describe the change in Botswana's exchange rate, and the answer is that it has appreciated. If it was a managed exchange rate, it would have revalued, but it is not a managed exchange rate. It is a free floating one, and as such, it has appreciated. Now, outline one reason why the increase in domestic interest rates in Botswana may have caused the value of the BWP to increase. Well, all we're saying is an increase in interest rates leads to an inflow of financial investment funds. Why? Because people are getting a greater reward for putting money in Botswana account than they were previously. Okay, which caused the demand for the BWP to increase. Well, why? Well, you have to flip and well have BWP in order to put it into a Botswana savings account. Now, state the term that would describe the change in BWP if the BWP was determined in a fixed exchange rate. I've already said that, sorry, revaluation. Okay, now, I don't know why I've left this in, but it doesn't matter. Define the term income inelastic. Well, demand is income inelastic if a change in income leads to a proportionately greater change in quantity demanded. So 1% change in income would lead to a greater than 1% change in quantity demanded. Now, let's make sure we can see all of this, guys. Okay, actually, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll just move this up. Okay, lovely. Now, okay, explain using an appropriate diagram how faster economic growth in the US and the EU may affect the value of the BWP. Before I even just read it, all I'm going to say is, if your economy is growing, or if an economy is growing, that means that people in that economy tend to develop greater taste for imports. And if I take the extreme example just to illustrate my point, who buys more Ferraris, rich people or poor people? Okay, and then you would say rich people, right? And then I'm saying, okay, well, where are Ferraris made? Abroad. This is the kind of just simple thing. So as you get richer, and I actually really did notice this in Ireland. I shouldn't be talking like this, but anyway, I really did notice this in Ireland. Like we used to eat the most simplistic of food, and then because I was born in 1982 when the country was really, really poor, it was by far the poorest country of the West. And then we went through a massive economic boom in the kind of late 90s and early 2000s. And the tastes have completely changed now. We're buying like goat's cheese and stuff. And, you know, all of these massive imports. And why? Well, we're richer. We have developed more expensive tastes, I suppose. Right, now, I'm rambling here, so I must get back to it. Right. So, if there has been, and there would be, right, from greater economic growth in US and the United States, and I knew I'd do that, US and the United States, US and Europe, that means that there's going to be a greater demand for the goods and services produced, BWP1, right, produced from other countries. And let's just say that Botswana is part of that, right? So that means that there's two things that are going to happen. First of all, more BWP. There's no real reason that I'm drawing this in red. It's just to kind of highlight it. All right. So obviously, just draw all your diagrams in pencil. We don't need fancy colours or anything like that. Okay. So there's more going to be bought, all right, from Europeans and from United States, people living in the US, and it's going to be a higher exchange rate. Now let's read what was said here, okay? So faster US and EU growth means that incomes are rising in these economies. That's what flipping economic growth is on average people are richer, and thus they will absorb more diamond imports from Botswana, all right? This shifts, now I've obviously taken just certain parts of this question that pertain only to exchange rates. So, you know, the diamonds thing would have been mentioned in the original exam. So don't be like, why is he bringing up diamonds? All right, we'll absorb more diamond imports from Botswana. This shifts the demand curve for BWP to the right. I'm sure we might as well put in an arrow or two, okay? And which leads to an appreciation of the BWP, and it certainly does. Now, what are we saying here? Yes, my favourite student in Australia. Okay, right, so a Thai student, right, just make sure you can see this. A Thai student decides to study at a university in Australia. The current market exchange rate is $1 Australian equals 30.61 Thai baht. Where AUS, oh, for God's sake, yeah, okay, great. Assume that the annual tuition fees are 18,450 Australian dollars, and the student expects annual living expenses to be 950 Australian dollars. Okay, right, well, that's not even close. You wouldn't live a week on that in Australia. But anyway, now, the total cost in Aussie dollars, okay, is 18,450, which I'm getting here from his tuition, plus 950 where I'm getting over there, and that equals, and I'm cheating here, guys, I've got my answers, okay, 19,400, and I hope they're right. So use a calculator in the exam, okay, always, always, always. Now, convert from Aussie dollars to Thai baht, right? Well, one Australian dollar is worth 30.61 Thai baht, 19,400, okay, multiplied by 30.61, and the answer here is in Thai baht, okay, we've got 593 834. Okay, and the reason is because if one Australian dollar buys 30.61 Thai baht, 19,400 of them will just multiply it by that and you get the amount of Thai baht. Now, when arriving in Australia, the student discovers that the Australian dollar has appreciated against the Thai baht by 6.25%. Calculate the new exchange rate. Right, no problem, no problem. The Australian dollar has gotten stronger. That means that the Australian dollar buys more Thai baht. That means that this number here is no longer accurate and it's going to be a bigger number. So it was 30.61 Thai baht to the dollar, but it's not that. We have to multiply that by 1.0625. Now, the 1 is the 100%, and this 0.0625 is 6.25%, right? So, of course, any questions you can ask this in class later on, but I hope you understand. That's just increasing it by 6.25%, right? So what that is 32,523,125. So obviously our answer is going to be to 2 places of decimals. And what are we talking about? Thai baht. Always keep these things labeled. There you go. Now, I don't want to confuse anybody on the next question. There are 2 ways to do it, right? And you actually seem to get different answers, but like they're largely the same, all right, because of rounding and stuff like that. So what we've got here is we've already said that, okay? So what we're saying is calculate the increase in Thai baht needed to pay for tuition and living expenses during the first year of studies as a result of the currency appreciation. Now, I think the easiest way to do this is just going still $19,400, and now we just multiply it by the new exchange rate, right? Which is 32.52. And what that equals is in Thai baht, okay, we have, Thai baht, we have 630,888. Now, that's not the increase, right? What we then have to do is take this new amount of Thai baht that this guy has to earn before he comes over to Australia, just for 1 year of study. And then I'm going to take away the old amount that he had budgeted for, 3,834. And then the answer here is in Thai baht, okay, is 37,054 Thai baht. Okay, now there is another way that you can do this, right? So if this was the amount of Thai baht that was originally converted to cover the 19,400 Australian dollar, what you can do, all right, is multiply this, which is 593,834 multiplied by 1.0625, and what that equals is 630,948.63, and that's in Thai baht. See that it's different to there, yeah, but it's you know, like whatever, it's rounding stuff, I suppose. So then we go 630,948.63 minus 593, which is this one, 834, and that equals in Thai baht 114.63, and it's not exactly the same as this one here, but it's very, very close, and they accepted both. Okay, just so you know. So if you're thinking, oh, like trainer's done it different to me, then no, don't worry, you're fine. Okay, it's absolutely perfectly fine to do it that way. Now, I believe, is this, yes, almost the last question, last page anyway. Okay, so what we've got here now is sketch on the following axis a fully labelled diagram, right, illustrating the appreciation of the Australian dollar. Well, have we done this before? And yes, we have. Okay, so like that's a cracker, right? That's no problem there, right? So we're just going to show an appreciation. That can be caused by an outward shift in the demand curve. So now what we've got is D2 AU dollar. Can you see that? Thank God you can. Okay, and then what I'll also do is I'll get out my trusty black pen here, and I'll say that, look, now you didn't actually have to do this. This is why I didn't, but I want you to just put in as much Q1, as much detail as you can. They're only interested in the value of the exchange rate. Okay. And what's the new one? It was 30.6, and now the new exchange rate is 32.52. Okay, so that's where I'm getting that from. 32.52 THB. Okay, lovely. And I might as well, so now that I'm here, be rude not to just drop a quantity one as well. Now, you didn't have to, but just do it, please. Okay, lovely. Now, almost, we're not at the last one yet. I just want to make sure I'm on the correct question, 6E, and I am. Fantastic. Okay, so what we're saying here is, using the diagram you have drawn in part D, which is that one, explain 2 reasons for which the Australian dollar may have appreciated against the Thai baht. And now we have our stuff written down here. Okay, well, the first one is increased Thai demand for Australian exports. That's Australian goods and services. So if Thai consumers develop a greater taste for Australian goods or services, the demand for Australian exports will rise, causing the demand for the Aussie dollar to increase. Okay, so that's fine, I hope. Reduced Australian demand for Thai exports. And this is important. If tastes and preferences of Australian consumers move away from Thai products, the demand for Thai imports falls. And as a result, the supply of Aussie dollars on the Forex market would decrease. And yes, it absolutely does. Okay, so you got to be thinking of all of these possible answers, guys, right? You've always got to be thinking of this stuff. Okay, so let me just make sure it's in focus. Excellent. Okay, right. Increase in Australian interest rates. Yeah, an increase in Australian interest rates compared to Thai interest rates would create an increase in international development or investment funds in order to avail of higher, at least relatively higher rewards in Australia. In order to invest in Australia, they need Aussie dollars. This would cause the demand for Australian dollars to increase and shift out to the right. Okay, relatively higher Thai inflation. And don't forget this stuff, guys, okay? It's all about, the acronym TIPSY, okay? Taste and preferences, relative interest rates, price levels, which is inflation, which we're talking about now, speculation, and income, okay? If Thai inflation rises to become relatively higher than Australian inflation, Thai products become less competitive compared to Australian products. And this means that Australian goods are more attractive, more competitive, and as such are in higher demand. Therefore, the demand for Australian dollar increases because in order to buy Australian goods, you have to have Australian currency. Speculation. Now, what do we mean by speculation? Okay, well, speculation, the definition of it is buying something with the belief that it will rise in value in the future, but you haven't added anything onto it. Okay, so you're going to buy the Australian dollar if you believe that it'll go up further, and that belief, and if enough people believe that, that will cause enough of an outward shift on the Australian dollar, which will actually cause it to be a self-perpetuating prophecy, if you want to put it in fanciful terms. It will cause, the belief in it is enough to cause it to happen. If there is speculation that the Aussie dollar will appreciate, or there is speculation that interest rates in Australia will rise, then foreign investors will demand more Australian dollars in order to avail of these higher returns. This will cause an outward shift in the demand for Australian dollars. The demand for Australian dollar will increase, and as such, higher exchange rate and relative income levels. So again, lads, this is just pure that tipsy acronym that we were saying, okay? Taste and preferences, relative interest rates, relative price levels, speculation, and relative income levels. If incomes in Thailand rose relative to those of Australia, then Thai consumers would demand more imports. Why? Because that's what happens. It's just what people do. When you can afford more nicer stuff, you buy more nicer stuff. And what you find is there's more nicer stuff outside of your country than there is made inside of your country. It's a wonderful part of the fact of life. If these imports came from Australia, the demand for the Australian dollar would rise, causing an appreciation of the Australian dollar. Really hope that you guys understand that, and we have 2 more things, and we're coming in about 45 minutes. Okay. So assume that the Reserve Bank of Australia, the central bank, operated a managed float. Okay, that is, it allows the currency, the value of the currency, the exchange rate to be decided by demand and supply, but they will influence those demands and supply. They will actively engage in the market to change demand or change supply of theirs and other currencies. All right, a managed float, define the term managed float. A managed float implies periodic intervention. By whom? By the central bank, in order to influence exchange rates. And then the last one is state one action the Reserve Bank of Australia could take to prevent a further appreciation of the Australian dollar. Well, what they could is sell more Aussie dollars on the Forex market, reduce interest rates, or add to its reserves of foreign currency. And how to flip, you add to your reserves of foreign currency, you sell your own. And you print it, then sell it, and then now you've got more foreign currency. Okay, guys, that's everything. Thank you so much, and I hope that helped. Okay, thank you.